Alright, what's up guys? We're going to be going over, sort of quickly, the design choices in DBD, and just going over a few things that I haven't seen touched on much, but just design choices in the game that are, we'll say, hindering the game a lot. Certainly hindering the growth of the game, definitely pushing people away from the game, and just removing so much opportunity from the game. And we'll just preface by saying, this is in no way indicative. The things we talk about in this video are in no way indicative of the strength of the game. If I complain about X survivor offering, or X survivor item, it doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It just means that it's poorly designed, which is what we want to drive home here. So we'll start by actually comparing DBD to two other games that will seem pointless to compare, but they are extremely relevant, and we'll show why. So two other games had this design flaw that I'm about to talk about. That's World of Warcraft and League of Legends. Both of them had this problem, and both of them solved it. And we'll look how. So what was their problem? Well, if we Alt-tabbed Chrome, this is the old talent system for World of Warcraft. Essentially, all of these are I guess, perks. But the thing to drive home is that none of these are active. They're just there. They just slightly buff some of your abilities. That's all they do, essentially, all of them. And this is what they were. They were removed and replaced with this. This system, there's a lot less of them, but you get 3 options per level, or per 15 levels. And all of these are either new abilities, or they completely rework one of your abilities, or add something completely new to your abilities. Something along those lines. And this was tremendously successful. Nobody misses the old system. This was so much better. And League of Legends also had this problem. They had 2 of these systems. They had the rune system, or the mastery system, and they had the rune system. Both of them were exactly the same as the World of Warcraft one. All these did is just slightly buffed your character in some way. They didn't really add anything new or anything that changes. And they were also replaced with this new rune system, which you can talk about how the rune system is unbalanced, but it's different and it's way better. Nobody misses the old system. It was terrible. Everyone hated it. This is so much better. Same thing. You pick one talent and it adds something completely new. You have to stack it. You have to, I don't know, activate it in some way, or you have to meet a certain condition before it's active. Anything along those lines. Essentially, all of these runes here do that. And you could question why this is relevant to DBD, but we'll talk about why. So let's get rid of Chrome for now, and let's go to DBD. So how does this relate to DBD? I think DBD has the same problem, except they don't seem very interested in fixing it. And they have the same problem in 2 ways: offerings and add-ons. So offerings, or items actually, by add-ons, it's almost entirely Survivor has this problem. The killer add-ons are fine. Most of them are fine. Some of them are a bit crappy, but they're fine. The Survivor add-ons, however, are a complete joke. But before we go to the add-ons, we'll go to the items. Everyone already knows what items I'm going to complain about. The key. The key is, why does this exist? It is just so dumb. It is completely uninteractive, and it is exactly the same as the World of Warcraft and League of Legends talent systems. Why? Because all those systems did was just buff something. That's all they did, and that is all this does. All this does is reduce the game time. That is it. Screw all this text here. That's all it does. All it does is you now don't have to finish the gens. The sum, I guess, is just add 1 to how many survivors there are, and that's when you can use the key. So 4 survivors left, you need 5 gens done. 3 survivors, 4 gens done. Use the key and get out. It's so dumb for several reasons. Let's talk about why. So, A, they shorten the game too much, self-explanatory. B, they just take so much intensity out of the game for me. I mean, for me, the most intense part of the game is there's only a few survivors left, and you've just about finished the last gen, and now you have to get to an exit gate, and you're just shitting yourself that, oh my god, if the killer comes to mine, is he going to come to his? Or you've 3-gen'd yourselves, and now the killer's just frantically patrolling, and it's so difficult to get. That's the intense part of the game for me. And this just ruins that completely. If someone has a key, that's just, okay, well, now the killer can't even patrol the 3-gen. He now has to sit by the hatch, which leads me on to my next point. It's not only unfun for the killer, it can be unfun for the survivor. There's a reason people don't take the key more. And it's because if a killer notices you have a key in a lobby, guess what? You're going to get tunneled. You're getting tunneled out of the game 100%. He will even face camp you. If he's running Franklins, he'll hit you. He might even run Franklin specifically because you have a key. You will get tunneled because, I mean, he has to. It's basically an item that's just bringing a finished gen to the game. It's ridiculous. It's so dumb. So I think for keys, I mean, you've probably heard this before, they should have some kind of animation. And a lengthy one as well. Like, maybe not 10 seconds like Tojo, at least 5 seconds. Or perhaps they notify the killer when the hatch is being opened. Or perhaps, I don't know, the killer can see the aura of the hatch if someone brings a key. Something like that. Even if it could maybe even trigger the endgame collapse as soon as they start opening the hatch. Anything along those lines. Just something so it's not literally just a case of, oh, now you just get a get out of jail free card. It's dumb. I don't think we have to talk about the key much. We don't necessarily want to fill all the time just talking about an item everyone already knows is dumb. Instead, I want to talk about the map. Now, I don't know, people are going to question why I complain about the map. Like this, do you think I want to drive home with the map? It is just boring. It's not overpowered, it's just boring. Seeing the auras, you hold right click and now you see the auras. So much of indoor maps, for example, the intensity of them it's so much harder to find gens. It's so much harder to find totems. It's much harder to find... Actually, I find it easier to find the hatch in indoor maps for some reason. But everything else that maps track, I find it so much harder to find them on an indoor map. Maps just ruin that. And you don't have to take a map, but then people take that thing where all the survivors can see it. It's just boring, and it's completely uninteractive. You just hold right click on it, there you go, now you see everything. What? I think maybe maps should offer something in the sense of scratch marks. So maybe it doesn't show you where the aura is. Maybe it just shows you a trail to where something is, and that trail lasts some amount of time. Just not the aura. That's just so strange, and it feels like they just added this to the game because they saw there wasn't enough survivor items, and they're just like, okay, there you go. There's like now you can see auras of stuff. It's just boring. It needs some kind of interaction. Now what that interaction is, you could debate, but just something other than show auras, because that's stupid. But more what I want to talk about, as far as items for survivors go, is add-ons. Now, God, this is just a mess. So, mostly my problem is iridescent add-ons. I think there's a lot of survivor add-ons that are just worthless, frankly. Like the brown and a lot of the yellow ones are just useless, but the same applies for killer. The add-ons I'm talking about are the iridescent ones. And in a sec, after we go through these, we'll contrast them with the killer ones, so you can really see what I mean. So basically all of the survivor iridescent add-ons are just terribly designed. Now again, nothing to do with if they're strong or not. They're just badly designed. The only one I find remotely interesting is the brand new part, because it changes the game. It at least changes the toolbox. You can fail it. There's 2 hard skill checks, and you're rewarded. The survivor has to interact with them in some way. So this is the only one I find remotely interesting. The other ones are just garbage, I think, in the sense that they're just boring. The flashlight one is just strange. All it does is just make the flashlight a bit better. Well, it's a fair amount better. You know what I'd like to see with this? A 2-way street, like we have with some killer add-ons. Maybe it tremendously increases the battery consumption, but it also, you know, I don't know, tremendously increases the range, or moderately increases the range of something else. Or the complete opposite of that. Maybe tremendously increases battery consumption, or tremendously reduces battery consumption, but now the flashlight's incredibly inaccurate. Just something that's different. It doesn't need to be good or bad, just not boring. Because so many of the killer add-ons are just not boring, whereas this is just boring. This isn't even the most boring one. The most boring one is far and away this. Now look how much text this thing has. I'll save you the time of reading it. All this does is automatically use the medkit. That's all it does. It's so much text, and literally all it does is just automatically use the medkit, which is just, how boring is that? You think that it's not boring, but all you actually do, this looks so cool when you read it, and then you take it in a game. All you do is just hold right click and press space, and now you've used the medkit. So essentially what it does is just reduce the time in the medkit. What is that? Like, even this add-on is more interesting. This sounds way more interesting. It's borrowed time in a fucking bottle. Like, that's so much cooler. This is just boring. It's terribly designed, and all of these iridescent add-ons are just boring. And they need to be changed or interacted with in some way. And to show you how they could change that, let's contrast these with the killer add-ons. Because the killer add-ons tremendously change the game. And again, it doesn't even matter if they tremendously change the game for better or worse. The point is they change the game. Which is fun, because it keeps the game interesting. So let's go back to Chrome. And let's go look through 3 killer add-ons that I would like to cover. So, Huntress. These are just the ones that I thought of off the top of my head. Huntress. Have you ever played against Iridescent Head Huntress? I know this used to be OP, but it's so much more interesting, because you will figure out pretty quickly that she has it, because she won't be throwing any hatchets to you. You'll realize she only has 1 hatchet. Okay, she must have this add-on. I didn't even know this add-on existed. I figured it out in game. That's how much different this add-on makes Huntress, is that I figured out in game before she even hit me with it. I figured out that she must be running some build that she insta-downs, or something happens if she hits 1, because she just wasn't throwing any at me, and she wasn't bad either. It's so much different. This is so cool. Essentially what this does, she only gets 1 hatchet, but if she hits it, she downs you. So much better. Like, already, that's just so much more interesting than every survivor iridescent. Even all of them put together. Which one is it for Legion? Have you ever played against this add-on? This Legion add-on? Your terror radius affects the entire map when you're in Frenzy. That is so cool. I mean, it's not the best, because but it changes the game. Even better survivors, it won't necessarily trick them, but it forces them to play the game differently, and that's a good thing for everyone, whether you realize it or not, because the game's different. It stays fresh. I mean, this is just so cool. It's like my favorite add-on in the game to play against, even though Legion's not a very good killer. The Tombstone or Tuft of Hair on Myers. Have you ever played against the Myers build, where he takes these add-ons and he is permanently in tier 3, and he can Mori everybody in the game? Now, usually I don't find Mori's fun, but this, I don't mind this. I actually kind of like playing against this because it's just so intense. It's not even that good. It's kind of bad, to be honest, because the trade-off here is what we were talking about, having survivor items having trade-offs, or they should. The trade-off here is that it takes him an incredible amount of time to reach tier 3, because both of these add-ons are going to, tremendously increase the amount of time to reach tier 3. So if he takes these, it takes him a long time to get tier 3, but it's so interesting when he does, because he can just Mori everyone. He doesn't even need to hit them. You don't even need to be on a hook. He will Mori you. I've played against this before, and the game was 10 times more intense than any other game I had played in that time, in like 20 games for sure. Look how much more interesting these add-ons are, and then just look at the crappy survivor, the frankly crappy survivor add-ons that there are. I don't even know what Freddy's are. Recently opened recently opened exit gates are blocked for 15 seconds. That changes the game so much. That's just, I mean, we don't need to keep going down the list. You get the point. The point is that you compare these shitty survivor add-ons that just, oh, now the medkit's auto, and you only get 4 of them. Like 4, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3. So you only get 3 fucking survivor add-ons. What is that? And this crappy item here that does basically nothing, and then just this stupid item that forces you to get settled. How does this compare to anything the killer has? And again, this isn't about balance. It's just about what's interesting, and none of this is interesting at all. Like, people just take medkits because, oh, look, now I don't have to get healed. It's like the most interesting thing about Survivor. Which brings us on to offerings. Now, the second I said that, I'm sure everybody already knows what offering I'm going to talk about. And the fact that I don't need to say what it is and everybody already knows what I'm talking about, just, it speaks volumes, doesn't it? So, we'll preface with offerings. Just to finish out the last segment, actually, essentially what I want to see from Survivor add-ons is, or even just Survivor items, is some kind of trade-off, like the Myers add-ons. But offerings. So, it's important to note, offerings are not supposed to be game-changing. They're supposed to be just cool things you can throw in, just a cool wild card you can throw into the deck. Just to, oh, look at this cool thing now. Oh, look, now everyone has more luck. That's cool. And actually, I don't have a problem with offerings. There's a lot of blood point ones, which is fine. The map offerings, cool, we can choose the map. All of them are interesting. But the point here is they're not supposed to be game-changing. Even when you stack offerings, even when you stack Petrified Oak, it's just a little thing you can do if you want to do like a cheese build with Sabo. Which brings us on to one offering that is not only game-changing, but it is, what I want to drive home here, it's better than most perks. It's also important to note that basically every offering has a counterpart. White Ward, a counterpart for the killer, and vice versa. White Ward has Black Ward, same thing. This has a shroud that spawns everyone separate. This spawns one less chest. This spawns hooks closer together. I believe the killer has this as well. Every single one has a counterpart, except one. Mori's. If you haven't figured it out by now, you live under a rock. Mori's. There is no survivor counterpart to Mori's, and there shouldn't be. Because, as we said, offerings aren't supposed to change the game. And Mori's are just straight up better than most perks. They're actually just better than most killer perks. Imagine if there's a killer perk that had a Mori. Can you imagine how many people... It wouldn't be the best perk in the game, but it'd be damn popular. Just a perk that literally is just an ebony Mori. How dumb is that? Like, let's talk about Moris. I mean, we don't need to spend long on this. So, number one, Moris have no counterpart, and they shouldn't. We covered that. Number two, what I don't get about Moris, why are they secret? I mean, we've just said they have no counterpart, and they're stronger than most perks. Why are they secret? Most people can figure out if the killer has a Mori pretty quickly, because it will be secret. You know which... you already know which offering is the killer's because it has a black background. And you... if you see people don't spawn far apart, then it's almost definitely a Mori. You know, process of elimination, it's a Mori. The problem is, you have no idea which Mori it is. Even after he Mori's one person, you have no idea which Mori it is, which is even more of a problem. He's just Mori'd someone without even taking an add-on, and you still don't know which it is. Why is this secret? Why is it an offering, and why is it a secret offering? Is it not strong enough, even if it's not secret? What actually changes if the survivors now know you have a Mori? They already knew you had a Mori. you just assume it's an ebony Mori. So why is it secret? I mean, at least if it's not secret, people don't have to play as if it is secret, because that's how they do play. You have to assume it is secret, or you have to assume it is an ebony Mori if you don't know, which is dumb. It shouldn't be secret, and it shouldn't be an offering. Number one. Now, what's the big problem with Moris? The big problem is they don't even feel fun. I don't even find taking Mori fun. I feel disgusting when I take a Mori. The big problem for me is that they have absolutely no counterplay, and they are in no way interactive with the survivors. You can't pallet stun. Okay, if someone is dead on hook, and they get downed, and the killer picks them up, you can pallet stun them. Or there is ways to save them. Someone is dead on hook, and they get downed, and the killer has a Mori, there is nothing in the game that can save that person. I don't even know if all survivors can body block. But even if they can, you can't body block long enough to get that guy up, or for him to unbreakable. You can't pallet save that guy because the killer doesn't pick him up. You can't flashlight save him because the killer doesn't pick him up. You can't flashbang save him because the killer doesn't pick him up. That person can't decisive strike because the killer doesn't pick him up. You can't sabotage the hooks. You can't body block the hooks. There is quite literally nothing you can do to stop that person being moried, which is just dumb. Because we were talking earlier about how things should be interactive, because it's just better for everyone if you have to interact with something to use it. This isn't interactive in any way. Like, not even a skill check for the killer to hit the Mori. Are you serious? Not even a skill check? And there's no the only precondition is that someone's on second hook, which is going to happen in basically every game ever anyway. At least with, Maya's Moris, there is a precondition. He has to go out of his way to activate his Mori. There is no precondition. It's too powerful. It just cuts so much time out of the game, and it does so with absolutely no counterplay. And the worst part is it does all of that without even deterring the killer in any way. It takes nothing away from the killer because it's an offering. What does the killer actually lose for taking a Mori instead of another offering? Nothing. I mean, maybe he takes the Shroud one where... the killer... He picks between, I can cut a ton of time out of the game and guarantee someone's death, or I can make the survivors... I can make the hooks spawn closer together. Why? These aren't even in the same ballpark. Even if he could take 3 of these... See the problem here? It does so much, and the killer loses nothing for taking it. Literally nothing, other than the offering itself, which, let's face it, is not very hard to get. And last thing on Moris, they're just skillless. We were talking earlier about how those old WoW and lore systems were just really ridiculous because they're skillless. They're just there, which forces a meta, weirdly. They're completely skillless. They're utterly skillless. All you have to do to Mori someone is just press spacebar on them. There's not even the skill of picking them up, because at least then you could argue, okay, well, they have to face a wall, I guess, or they have to make sure there's no... No, there's no skill. Without a doubt, we saved the best for last here. There's nothing more stupid in the game, and there's no better poster child for this whole video than Moris. Completely uninteractive. We won't talk about Moris anymore. That's what we'll talk about for now, but essentially, to wrap up, I think this is such a big problem, and unlike the devs of WoW and LoL, it seems the devs of this game have not figured that out yet. And if they have figured it out, they're showing absolutely no intention into rectifying it, because Moris still exists for some reason. And all these things still exist. So what would I like to see? I'd like to see survivor items, the iridescent add-ons for survivors, and even some of the purple ones just changed, so they're a bit more interesting. I don't even care if you make them weaker, just make them not boring. Maps, change this. It's just boring. It takes out so much mystery, I guess, in the game, especially for new players. Keys, I don't know, add something to them. They're just boring, and they're really annoying for everyone, to be honest. Few people actually like keys. That's why nobody takes them, and the people who are just get tunnel or toxic. Change keys. Change all of these iridescent offerings. Moris, I don't even know what you want to do. Maybe make them into a perk in some way. I feel like it'd be strange if you made Moris cancelable, like flashlight save or something. That'd be very weird, because the whole point is it's supposed to be, you are doomed, nothing can save you. I honestly don't know what to do about Moris. I'll make them into a perk, or limit when the killer can activate them. I know you can't limit it much past second hook phase. Or even hinder the killer in some way, even just slow the killer down in some way in exchange for the Mori. That might even make them more interesting, and it might even make it a bit easier for survivors to tell which Mori it is. That's what I want to see. Hang around for the next video, because we'll be talking about this basically the same thing but with perks, because perks are equally stupid. And yeah, thanks for watching.